Another episode of Writings from the Hills. I'm Lori, and today I'm going to be reading a selection out of Redbush by Kermit Daugherty. And in 1987, the Ohio Arts Council and Ohio Humanities Council funded a proposal from Rio Grande College to convert this novel into a regional theater production. And it is actually the University of Rio Grande who gave us permission to read this book for our program. And today I'm going to be reading Chapter 1, Redbush. Me? I'm Bill Brennan. I lived in Redbush up the ridge between Hay and Blue Creeks. At the time my story starts, way back on the other side of the 1900s, I thought our Redbush was a big part of the world. Now I know most folks never even heard of it. We didn't do big things, good or bad, so nobody took much notice of what went on back in the hills. Well, long as they let us live alone, to live our own way, it suited us. Making a living to keep body and soul together and making love to keep worth living took up more time, and the rest of the world could take care of itself. It's always been called Redbush, but why nobody seems to know. Some say 'twas from the dead leaves hanging all winter long on a scrub of oaks that gives the hills a reddish look, and especially when the snow's on the ground. Maybe that's why. But to one who's seen the flaming fall colors of the Colan lands, there is another answer, and it's a good one. After the cordwood was cut off, the Colan lands growed back up with sourwood, sassafras, and sumac. That kind of brush takes a high color when the frost nights come. I've seen whole hillsides rippling in October wind and looking like the walls of fire spreading over them. All the hill country in southern Ohio is pretty in the fall, but here in Jackson County and some of the others around it, it is where the old nature spills her prettiest paint pots and then runs around mixing them with all up like mad. Sometimes I think our way of living wasn't as good as we thought it was. It was mighty hard, scratching a living out of the poor hill patches. A family worked hard to grab off a little more ground so as to raise a few more mouthfuls to eat. Then after all their hard work, they'd have to stand by and see the good topsoil wash down the hillside to fill up some bottomland in the valley. But the brush grew no matter how thin the ground got, and then one piece was patched out, another could be rooted up with a stump jumper plow. It took work of fighting to raise a crop. Seemed like there was always a hungry mouth waiting to grab whatever was raised. If the brush, briars, and weeds could be kept down, the worms and bugs was sitting there waiting to grab whatever started to grow. And if you got past them, the birds and varmints pounced in and tried to snatch it afore a picking time. Looked like everything in the hills had a good appetite. Change was slow in coming to Redbush. That big stump out in the middle of the patch shows how it was. It's been there years on end now, and when the ground's plowed, the furrows come up close and the paths around on both sides. But the day will come when the stump rots out, and though a few tough old roots may hold for a while longer, it won't be long before the furrows claim it. These Redbush hills have been like that stump. New ways move in, but our hills turn them south along the Ohio River or north along the flatlands. The stump won't last forever, and no more than the hills can stop change. It was slow in reaching us, that's all. In the early days of change, I was too busy with my own affairs to see it coming. Maybe some afternoon a man will stand and look up at the bright sun. To him it looks no different than it did at noon. But nights come closer even if you can't see the change. And there's all right. Years back, I sat on Jack Tilley's store porch and heard talk of a rig that run itself. It took pretty much as a joke, as it would never crossed our minds how a contraption was fixing to turn our little world upside down. But it did. The auto brought good roads in, and an old ways went out. The old stump was eased out of the way of progress. Oh, there's a few, like the roots, that hold into the ways of the past. but they'll be soon gone. In the smoke haze of Indian summer, and the hills fade away and are gone from sight. But they're still here. And though the years missed over my early days in Red Brush, I find them still there when I look back. Well, if you would like to read more from Out of Red Brush by Kermit Daugherty, you can check it out by going to our catalog at www.briggslibrary.com. Please remember to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you next time.